Age ain't nothing but a number, and Timbaland's obsession with baby girl Aaliyah was perhaps more than a lover. Timothy was downright in love with his young collaborative muse. But wait, you might want to refrain from your ahs and halt your Wattpad stories because we may have yet another R. Kelly-esque situation on our hands. Everyone and their mamas seemed to be obsessed with Aaliyah. Her fans, peers, and a disturbing pattern of much older men lusting after the swaggy teen. Tim being no exception. He was so in love with our favorite bang-wearing Calvin Klein ambassador that he, unprovoked, admitted to marrying his wife due to her similarities in appearance to Aaliyah, and even fell into a depression following her death, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Timbaland's obsession with Aaliyah is more wild than we could have ever guessed. While he was whipping up his signature sound to be used as foundational beats for Aaliyah's music, he was also fighting the urge to leap across the soundboard, run into the booth, and kiss her right then and there. Okay, maybe that part we're exaggerating a bit, but he was fighting the urge to express his love for the Disney-wearing songstress. Probably because baby girl was only 16? Yeah, we'll go with that. Despite his many accolades, numerous Grammy Awards, and awards in general under his overlapped belt, it took Timbaland years to accumulate his achievements and gain popularity within the industry. Springboarding from his trainee swing mob days to being Aaliyah's main producer for her second body of work is a huge leap in anyone's career, and single-handedly projectified Tim's career to new heights. If you've seen our last video, then you know that the dynamic three, Tim, Missy, and Aaliyah, were the dream team. Everything they touched seemed to turn to gold, most times than not platinum. Whilst working on hits like One in a Million, as well as majority of songs on the album consisting of the same name, Timbaland's and Aaliyah's relationship outside of the music realm was more complex than what they led us to believe, more so on Timbaland's end. Following Aaliyah's relationship drama and low-key but not so low-key marriage to Robert "the Tinkler" Kelly, a safe space was needed for her to shed any residue of that entire situation, thus leading her to a new musical home base over at Atlantic Records. The new sound overall wasn't just a good idea for her to upgrade her image, but a great way to cut ties with her ex-main songwriter and groomer. Unfortunately for Miss Leah, she'd hop out of a pedophilic situation and jump right into another one. Somewhat. Before Timbaland got the job as Aaliyah's main producer, a sample song was leaked to her, and needless to say, she wasn't feeling it all that much, but felt as though the it factor was there. So she, with the help of her team, analogically speaking, hogtied him up and yanked him right on in to be a part of their team. A close friendship evolved over the span of the two's work-related endeavors, which steadily turned into a platonic relationship. While Tim was writing, producing, and starring in Aaliyah's We Need a Resolution. Knowing what we know now, the song itself seemed to be inspired by his true feelings towards her. He himself had needed a resolution for their relationship because Tim was tired of hiding parts of himself from his underage love interest. He continued to work with her all the way up until around the release of her third studio self-titled album, Aaliyah. Despite producing several songs on the album, the songs were created during her One in a Million era. By this point, Timbaland and Aaliyah were still friends, but their work relationship was declining, and folks weren't sure if it had something to do with Aaliyah herself wanting to evolve her sound, or if her uncle, Barry Hankerson, had something to do with it. Either way, the two eventually fell out and stopped talking to each other for quite some time. And unfortunately, Timbaland never got the chance to patch things up with Aaliyah before her sudden passing in 2001. The impact of her death was felt all over the world, and memorials and tributes were made following that tragic year. Timbaland, along with everyone else who had fallen in love with Aaliyah's music and overall personability, were left completely devastated, and the hole she had left within the industry could be felt especially on Timbaland's end. Unbeknownst to the public, the hitmaker had spiraled into a depression that would last for years, 10 to be exact. And although he found some form or refuge within other artists, producing a wave of Justin Timberlake's music in 2002 with hits like Cry Me a River, his A-list star-studded list of celebs he'd go on to produce for just couldn't fill the void in his heart. He didn't believe in himself like he once had, and felt as though Aaliyah took a part of him with her both musically and personally. Lots of praying and great faith eventually helped our good brother in Timothy rise from the pits of his own mind, and he finally began to come to full terms with baby girl's passing, sometime around 2010. Lots of praying and great faith eventually helped our good brother in Timothy rise from the pits of his own mind, and he finally began to come to full terms with baby girl's passing sometime around 2010. Long and behold, the pits weren't totally dissolved, but were covered up and revealed once an opioid addiction found its way into Timbaland's life after being prescribed a dosage to cope with pain following a dental procedure. Being a newlywed and dealing with prediabetes, the pills helped him cope with the realities of his transitioning life and boosted his overall confidence. He'd eventually quit cold turkey and even lost 130 pounds in the process. Speaking of being a newlywed, upon getting with his now ex-wife Monique, fans couldn't help but squint their eyes and rub their chins whenever the two would step out. Not necessarily because of how the entertainment executive looked, but more so who she looked like. Aaliyah Houghton, is that you, sis? Monique's mild resemblance to the late and great Aaliyah had us all doing a double take. Maybe it's that dang bang? Whether you believe Monique favors Aaliyah or not, as per usual, it gets worse. In his True Hollywood Story doc that appeared on the E! Network in 2011, Timbaland confessed to falling in love with Aaliyah at first sight. When the two crossed paths initially in the mid-90s, the intro to R.Kelly's Bump and Grind must have been playing on a loop in Tim's mind, because the urge to confess his love for the then 16-year-old was heavier than he was. As far as we know, the two never actually dated, so the urges stayed exactly that. Timbaland desperately wanted to act on those urges, but knew the baby girl was just that, a baby. According to him, that is. In his own words, he expressed that Aaliyah was a baby when they had met and referred to himself as quote-unquote an old man. She's just a baby, I'm old. I said to myself, I'm just gonna be her brother. Oh man, I was fighting a lot, a big war. Oh, but the word vomit didn't stop there. Fan suspicions reigned true when Timbo further admitted to only noticing his wife at a music event in Jamaica due to her similarities to Aaliyah, going as far to say that he knew he was going to marry her right because of that exact same reason. Monique must have got tired of Tim addressing her as Aaliyah by mistake and telling her to do that thing Leah used to do, because she'd end up filing for divorce not once but twice. Once in October of 2013 and again in 2015, this time finalizing the deed. Departing from their 7-year marriage, Timbaland basically said, "That ain't no problem," and his pursuit of finding his Aaliyah lookalike persisted. Oh, y'all thought it was over? In 2017, 2 years after their divorce, Timbaland stumbled across a woman, Michelle Dennis, who some say shares even more similarities to Aaliyah than his last girl did. Overall, Aaliyah clearly had these dudes fiending, which wouldn't be so bad if only Aaliyah was actually of age and not a teenage girl just trying to live her best life. Timbaland's unprovoked confessionals were interesting to say the least. Some say he should be locked up with the rest of them. Others seem to think that as long as he didn't act on his feelings, then there's no issue. Whichever you agree with, I think we can all agree that some things are better left unsaid. He wasn't able to win over Aaliyah's heart in the way he had hoped for, but he was able to find him a couple of Aaliyah lookalikes. You gotta get them how you can, I guess. Do you think Timbaland loved Aaliyah a little too much? Let us know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments, and stay tuned for more true celebrity stories.